Hey guys, Trent here, back as an instrument rated pilot. So those of you who may have seen my short the other day noticed that on June 20th, I passed my check ride, and I've been promising for a while to explain to you how my study plan, my procedures, everything, how I put all that knowledge in my head and got myself prepared for the check ride that I passed. And that is exactly what we're going to cover in some detail in this video. So if you're ready, stick with me and let's dive into it. All right, for a quick summary for you, just some background in case you haven't been following my channel. I'm a 53-year-old guy who's on his way to becoming an airline pilot as a career 2.0. I published a video, right at the beginning of my channel, is 53 too old to become an airline pilot. If you haven't seen that video, there's going to be a link for it down in the description, and I would encourage you to watch that because it's been watched by a lot of people, and I got a lot of really positive feedback. And if you are 53 or somewhere around my age, trust me when I say you are not too old to become an airline pilot. So in my case, I got my private pilot way back in my 20s. Then life, happened. I've got videos that cover all that, so I'm not going to go into that here. But I stopped flying for a long time, and I trained in Canada. So when I came down to the United States, where I've been living for like a dozen or so years, I basically needed to kind of quote unquote redo my private pilot's license so that I could get an FAA private pilot's license. So I did that. So I arrived at the school on May 4th. Realized somewhere around the middle of, or maybe the third week of May, that there was going to be this issue of having to redo the oral exam and the check ride for the private license. So I did that on May the 29th. And if you've been watching my channel, you'll know that I actually failed the oral, even though I had a private pilot's license in Canada, but from years ago, I failed the oral in my first attempt. And that's really important to understand for the rest of the context of this video, because I didn't have a really good study plan. What I did was I signed up for Sporty's private pilot training program. I watched all their videos, I took all their little quizzes, but there was one really, and while it was helpful, there was one really big oversight that I made, and that was that I didn't know what the ACS was. Now, the ACS is the Airman Certification Standards. So the ACS, when it comes to any of the check rides, is literally the roadmap on what you can expect to be tested on, what knowledge you must have in your head. And so if you use the ACS as your study guide, as I did for my instrument, you're going to be far, far, far better off. And people told me, oh, make sure you follow the ACS or check out the ACS. And I was so overwhelmed with all the textbooks, the P-Hack and all the other books that are available. I was like, oh my God, it's just another textbook. And I like watching videos better, so I'm just going to stick to the videos. Don't do that. Video alone is probably not going to be sufficient to help you retain the knowledge. What I found is really important is to have multiple ways that you're putting that knowledge into your head, and I'm going to describe all of that in this video. So let's kind of jump right into that. So when it came to the instrument, the very first thing that I did was I created a Google Doc that showed the ACS broken down step by step by step, and then I made all sorts of notes in that. So I'm just going to sort of share that with you here so that you can see what I mean. All right, so what you should be able to see on your screen now is my Google Doc. And you can see here, so the ACS has all these tables. So in this case, you can see that the table is called Pre-Flight Prep. It's Section 1 and Section A, Pilot Qualifications. And it tells you where to get the knowledge. It tells you the objective. And then it says specifically K1, K2, K3, you need to know this stuff. You need to know the answers because they're gonna ask you at least one of these most likely your DPE is going to ask you at least one of these in the oral exam. Basically, they can ask you about any of these things. These are risk management, R1, 2, 3, 4, and then you need to be able to demonstrate these skills, which is S1. If there was more than one skill, there'd be an S2, an S3, and S4. So what I would do is then I created this Google Doc, and then after all of these screenshots, I just started typing in, because for me, writing down information is one of the ways in which I learn. So I just started typing in all of the answers to all of the stuff that was in that table. And then I put all sorts of screenshots and other stuff in. So this one Google Doc became sort of my single source of truth when it came to essentially preparing myself for the oral exam. And within the Google Doc, you'll find, and I don't know if I'll be able to find one here real quick. There we go. So one of the other things that I really leaned on was the Flight Insights channel on YouTube. So if you've never seen Flight Insights, they've got some really fantastic free and paid training. If you're interested in signing up for their paid training, which I highly recommend that you do, I'll place my affiliate link down in the description. Doesn't cost you a dime more, and they pay me a little bit of money. And actually, I think you guys, if you use my affiliate link, you get a discount. And I'll put, because I don't remember the discount, I think it's 20 or 25%. I'm going to have to go and recheck the email with Dan, but I'll put all of those details down in the description. But even if you don't end up buying Dan's paid IFR training course, he's got an IFR playlist on his channel, which has a lot of really, really fantastic training videos. So I watched every single one of those videos, and in some cases, I watched them multiple times. So that was another way that I get good quality video-based training. And as a side note, by the way, so before I started the prep for the oral, and I covered this in other videos, but maybe you didn't see those, I had actually written the FAA written exam even before I got to the flight school, which you can totally do, and I recommend that you do. And for me, I used Shepherd Air to prep for that. So there is a cheat sheet it's produced by Pilot Cafe. You can get it by donation, and it's the IFR Quick, what does it say? IFR Quick Review. So this is a super awesome document. It covers a huge amount of the stuff that's in the ACS. And so this is a very, very valuable, I mean, and again, you can get this for like a couple bucks. And so I wholeheartedly recommend that you get this as well. Matter of fact, I've had some people tell me that all they studied was this and Flight Insights videos, and they did okay. In my case, because I had failed the private oral exam, there was no way I was coming into this unless I felt like I was 5 times over prepared. This was one of the tools that I used, but not the only one by any stretch of the imagination. So the next thing that I did was, if you go, so now we're going to switch over to my iPad here, and you can see, so what you're looking at is Kindle. And so you can see there's a bunch here on the screen. There's the instrument pilot in red, oral exam guide, and then when I get to multi, I'm going to be using the multi oral exam guide. When I do my CFI, I'm going to be using the CFI, and commercial pilot, which I'm working on right now. You can bet I'll be looking at the oral exam guide for that as well. So these oral exam guides are super helpful because they help you to understand sort of what to expect. They give you all sorts of scenarios. They give you quiz questions, scenario-based questions. And in my case, because I was studying with my wife, we were able to use both my Google Doc and this oral exam guide. And so because she had the answers in front of her, she would be able to help me by saying, hey, tell me about the recency requirements for an IFR pilot, or tell me about the what you need to do to be legal to fly in IFR conditions, or again, whatever the questions were, she was able to help me do that. And then, so that's the last. So the last thing So now if we go into ForeFlight, and ForeFlight's a really great place to store a lot of documents. Oh, by the way, for those of you who, well, the hours update, I meant to give that at the beginning of the video because people ask me all the time. So on May 4th, I had 100 hours, total sidebar. I should have put this at the beginning, I'm sorry. And now I have 181 hours, plus I have 40 hours of 50 allowable in the sim. So I'm already on the home stretch to my commercial pilot's license, which I expect to have in about 2 weeks. So when you go into your documents section, there's the ACS there. So I stored all sorts of other documents. I've created these binders, one called IFR reference, one called IFR flying. So this would be stuff that I might refer to while I'm flying. And then I even created one for the check ride so that I had all of the documents that I might need to get my hands on during the oral exam. And so one of these documents here, this was created by one of the instructors at the school. And I'm going to put a link to this also in the description. I'll put it on my Google Drive so that you guys can get a free copy of it. So basically, and this guy who created this, his name is Colin Harris. You can see Harris 4. He went through 4 years of aviation college. It's a 64-page long document, and Colin, to his credit, is essentially a walking encyclopedia of aviation knowledge. So I read this thing from cover to cover as well. So the final thing that I did was that I would then read from my Google Doc into the voice recorder on my phone, so that, because I'm where I'm at in my RV is a 26-minute drive from the airport. So as I was driving to and from the airport, I could literally listen to audio recordings of what was in that master Google document that I showed you. And that was also helpful. So I had information coming into my head visually through videos. I had information coming into my head audio-wise. I had it from reading. I had a lot of visual aids in the Google document. So I think we call these modalities. So I had a lot of different ways that I had information coming into my head. And then the final thing, which proved to be wildly valuable, and in this regard, I think I was a little bit lucky, was, so I mentioned the simulator time. So for the typical CFI, simulator time, in my experience, was definitely of a lot of value until you had it down, like flying a non-precision approach, flying a precision approach, flying an RNAV approach. Once you've done enough of them, they're kind of pretty easy. What was really valuable for me, and I wish this was easy to replicate for you guys, but maybe, and I'm sharing it with you so that you can keep on the lookout for it, was there is an instructor at the school, Midwest Corporate Air, where I'm going. His name's Fabio, and he was a so he's an instructor, 800 or so hours at the time of this recording. But he worked for a couple of years as a professional sim trainer. In other words, airline crew would come into I think he worked for a company called Flight Safety, if memory serves me correctly. So he had a ton of experience creating scenarios like, hey Trent, we're taking off at Aspen today and we're gonna fly over here. Plan that flight, and then we're gonna go fly it. And I'm gonna break down that process in detail in a separate video, because this video will be too long if I do that. But these hours and hours that I've been racking up in the sim with Fabio have been wildly valuable in helping me to become a better instrument pilot. And the reason for that is, you know, there's theory and textbooks and videos, and then there is the practical application of the knowledge. And when I'm in the sim with Fabio, the practical application is what's happening. All right, so I think I've done a pretty decent job of summarizing how I trained or prepared myself for both the oral exam and the instrument check ride itself. I'm gonna create a couple more videos, many more, but a couple more relating to this topic. Number one, I think I'm gonna, if there's demand, and please put it in the comments, if you want me to create a video where I talk about the oral exam and the check ride itself, I'm happy to do that. You got to keep in mind though, not every DPE does the same thing. So just, you know, my DPE might be very, very different than your DPE. So maybe that video would be of limited value to you. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the Other thing that I think is really, really important is to use your sim time and to do your best to find an instructor who kind of teaches in the way that Fabio does. And later today, I am actually going to be in the school's new $1 million simulator. And our plan is to have, and it's got a bunch of cameras in it, so hopefully it's going to capture all the footage. And Fabio is going to be doing one of his sim sessions with me. So ideally, we're going to have a real live capture of a sim session in his style, so that for those of you who maybe have an instructor who isn't necessarily doing the teaching the way Fabio is, you could like get him to watch that video, and maybe they would adapt their style. Now, some instructors have big egos, maybe they don't want to do that, but nonetheless, it would be a resource for you and for your instructor, because the learning opportunities were absolutely phenomenal. So a couple small requests: if this video has been valuable to you, please do leave a comment, even if it's just way to go, love the video, whatever, because it's all about showing the YouTube algorithm there's as much engagement on this video as possible. So you either subscribe to the channel if you haven't, or you give it a like, or you leave a comment, because then that's going to help show the video to more people. And that's a huge thank you to me to help the channel grow, so I can do more things for more aspiring pilots. And so I would really appreciate that kind of support. The other thing, if you aren't yet on the email list, you can go to flywithtrent.com. You're not going to get very many emails. I predominantly only at this point send emails when I produce a new long form video like this. But the other reason why you want to be on that email list is, as the popularity of the channel grows and as the email list grows, I'm going to have sponsorship opportunities. And with those sponsorship opportunities, I'm going to have free stuff to give away. And how do you think I'm going to give away the free stuff? Well, you got to be on the email list to be entered into the contests to win the free stuff. So it's a pretty good deal for you. You don't get a whole lot of emails, and you get the opportunity to win some pretty cool free stuff. And obviously it helps the channel as well. And just in case you haven't seen before, I've talked about this sponsorship thing. What I'm trying to do initially with the channel is attract sponsors who will donate product or money that I can then give to you guys, the audience, as a way of reinvesting in the business, reinvesting in the channel, helping you guys, because by watching my videos, of course, you're all helping. Well, we're helping each other. You're learning stuff, and my channel's growing and getting more popular. So that's it for now. I'm going to wrap this one up. I want to thank you very much for watching. If you have any other questions, please make sure you leave those down in the comments. Attaboys are encouraged. If you have criticism, by all means, you can leave that in the comments as well. But if you're going to do that, make sure you're respectful, because I don't really like to have a whole lot of negativity here on the channel. And if you're not respectful, I'll probably just ban you from the channel anyway, and then you won't have the opportunity to comment. So thanks very much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next video soon. Take care. Bye-bye.